Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 3, Episodes 5 and 6. And let me just say that SLC is really bringing it this season. I am enjoying it. Every episode so far has been on point. The ladies are giving what they were supposed to have gave, in the words of the iconic Rolling Ray. I am pleasantly surprised, and so far, season 3 is their best season, in my personal opinion. But a lot went down in both episodes. I was shocked at what occurred in episode 6, that confession, but we'll talk about that later on. But again, a lot to unpack, a lot to dissect, and with all that being said, let's just jump right on into it because you guys already know that we don't have a minute to spare. So we open up episode 5 with Lisa and John at home, and of course they're discussing the Phoenix trip. So Lisa's like, John, did you and the boys miss me while I was away? So John says, of course we did. And now he brings up how it was stressful to get those calls from her while she was there. So now Lisa goes on to say that Angie Harrington is behind all those rumors about her doing God knows what for courtside jazz tickets. So John says that while no marriage is perfect, there is absolutely no truth to any of those rumors. Now, you guys already know that I went to BravoCon and I met Lisa and John. And John is very handsome in person. I could see the chemistry between them. They look like they're very attracted to each other after 10 or 11 years of marriage. And I highly doubt that Lisa would cheat on her handsome husband for some Utah Jazz tickets. I think that they have enough money where if they want courtside tickets, they can go and pay for them themselves. So I'm not believing this rumor for a minute. And whoever started it, it's like, really? I think that that's a big reach because I don't think for 1 minute that their problems are about cheating. But anyhow, Lisa goes on to say that Angie Harrington is a pathological liar. And we're going to talk more about this later on because there were certain things that were said on Angie and Chris's part that let me know that something in the milk ain't clean with the both of them. And like I said before, some people will stoop to any level to be on TV. So now Lisa says that Whitney actually won her over on the trip because she came clean. And then she says that she looks at Whitney in a totally different light. Now I said, Lisa, the jokes truly write themselves because Whitney was the one who brought up the rumor that Angie Harrington allegedly told her. Whitney flat out lied when you guys were in Phoenix. She was the one running her mouth. And then she ran back and lied and said that Meredith was saying all this stuff when she was the one who did it. So I said, it's just so funny to me that you want to say that Whitney's a good friend and she came clean and now you look at her in a totally different light. And I'm like, okay, girl, I hope you're watching these episodes along with the rest of us because as you can see, Whitney is not innocent in this. But once again, if Lisa wants to give Whitney a chance and see her in a new light, then so be it. So we jump to the next scene with Whitney and Justin. They're at home and of course, they're also discussing the Phoenix trip as well. So Whitney says that she's still recovering from the trip because she was an emotional wreck. She was drinking and crying the whole time. And I said, why are you trying to act like you're a victim? You caused all the drama and the chaos. Nobody told you to open your mouth and then lie and say that Meredith said all the stuff that you said. Whitney has a hard time taking accountability for what she does. It's almost like Whitney has arrested development. She's very emotionally stunted where she acts like a child. And Heather told you right that what you did was wrong. But now you want to tell your husband, oh, you know, babe, I was an emotional wreck and the trip just went downhill. Like, no, you caused all this. So now Whitney continues on and says that she's just so happy that she reconnected with her brother and sister, Curtis and Kelly, while they were out there, and how her healing journey is not over. Then she adds that she wants to leave the past in the past and look into some therapy. And I'm not trying to be funny, but I'm getting tired of this healing storyline. Like season 4 and 5, I want to see something else, Whitney. I'm serious. It's been 3 seasons of you healing, and once again, I'm getting a bit bored. So here's where I really got annoyed. Whitney says that the reason why she's still angry at Heather because Heather did not stick up for her on that trip, and how it triggered her and brought her back to her childhood of when she felt unheard. Whitney, I said this before in the last double recap. You have got to stop weaponizing your childhood trauma and trying to conflate 2 issues that have nothing to do with each other. Your childhood trauma has nothing to do with what occurred on this trip. You have no right to be angry at Heather on if she remembers what Angie said or not. Why are you angry at that? Heather said, I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I didn't hear it. You sound nuts. And Heather told you right when she said, you have made this entire trip about you. This trip was supposed to be about Jen, to take her mind off of what she's facing right now. But instead, you turned it back to yourself. You're just mad that Heather hit you with the truth. When I tell you that Whitney is wearing my patience thin this season, and we are only 6 episodes in, and I mean, I am tired. So now we flip over to the next scene with Heather over at Angie Harrington's house, and they sit down and start discussing the trip. So Angie is chomping at the bit to hear what went down, and Heather says, girl, your name was in it because Whitney said to everybody that you told her at a basketball game that Lisa gives BJs for courtside jazz tickets. So Angie is like, wait, what? I never said that. I would never say a thing like that there because that's a business setting. Chris's company owns a suite there, so I would never jeopardize his position by saying something like that at that time. So Angie goes on to say that she does know Whitney to be a pot stirrer and paranoid, but she's just shocked that Whitney would lie on her like this. So here's the thing, right? Since we already know what happens in episode 6, there is a part of me that feels like I don't put anything past Angie or her husband. I could easily see Angie sitting next to Whitney, who's a huge gossip and loves stirring the pot. I could see them while the men are cheering for the game. They're talking to the side and they're like, yeah, girl, you know I heard that Lisa does XYZ to get Vita tequila on the shelves, right? And knowing that Whitney's going to run her mouth and tell the rumor, I could definitely see that happening. I'm not so sure that I buy Angie's innocence of, oh my gosh, I would never. Why would she even say that? Do I think that Whitney exaggerates and stretches the truth? Yes. But I don't believe that she just got that out of thin air. I do believe that Angie said something, and maybe Whitney did put extra sauce on it, but best believe Angie Harrington alluded to something being done. Because you don't go from I didn't say anything to a rumor like that. Something was said. And you have to remember that when you're a friend of the show, you are fighting for a spot to come on as a full-time cast member for the next season. So what better way to get on the show than to put a little nugget out there, have one of the main cast members bring it back to the group, and now you're dragged in the mess, and it's a reason for producers to bring you on as a full-time castmate because now you actually have some real drama going on. So now Angie wants to know how Heather and Whitney are doing now, and Heather says, look, I just want to move on. I want me and Whitney to be close again, and because of that, I'm going to plan a fun ski day, and I'm inviting everybody. So we end the scene with Angie saying that she really hopes that Whitney is mistaken about her spreading this rumor about Lisa. And Heather says, no, she's positive that you said it and started this rumor. And if you say otherwise, she's gonna call you a liar. All in all, something was said about Lisa. Either Whitney's putting extra sauce on this story, or Angie did actually say that verbatim. Now we jump to another short scene with Jen and Coach Shah at home, and they're doing some couples exercise called soul gazing, When I tell you that it was so unserious, Coach Shah was laughing. He was like, yeah, I don't know what this is, so we can just stop right here. But he's telling her that he loves her despite all that's going on. And now Jen is expressing her frustration because she was on the girls' trip and then got on a red-eye flight to New York, only to find out from the judge that the judge is pushing her trial back until July. So Jen is getting super emotional, and she says that she's really upset and annoyed by this because she's been preparing for this trial now for weeks, and now for it to get pushed back, it's like, really? So Jen continues on by saying that the worst part about this whole thing are people questioning her innocence. And I was thinking, Jen, I don't know how else to tell you, but we knew from the beginning when everything came out that you did this and that you were guilty. And the fact that you have already admitted to it in court a few months ago, it's really weird watching you right now saying that you're innocent and declaring that you did nothing wrong. And I'm thinking, I mean, girl, we know the truth now. It's a mess. I like how supportive Coach Shah is. He's trying to comfort his wife when he told her that God put this on the both of them and they will get through this. It's touching to watch, but at the same time, there's this feeling of this didn't have to happen. And I know that I've said it so many times, but Jen, there was no reason for you to get on this show and lie. My thing is this. If Bravo should knock on your door, right? And let's say that you're not rich, but you're comfortable, you're upper middle class. You are better off coming on the show and saying, look, I'm doing all right for myself. Hopefully I can get to the next level soon, but right now, this is what it is, and I'm on the show with women who are wealthier. The audience will respect that a lot more when you're authentic and honest than you putting on airs. There was no reason for her to want to rent a 10,000 square foot chalet and say that it was hers. You already know that people are going to dig and try to find holes in your story when you get on these shows. You are better off either being honest or just saying, you know what, come back to me when I'm actually rich and I can really flex and stunt. But when you lie and you cheat and scam people, now you run into problems, now you are a laughingstock, and now you're facing jail time. Was it worth it? I feel sorry that Jen's kids are being put through all this. The fact that their mom is most likely going to be behind bars for quite some time. That's very sad. So now we move on to a dramatic scene with Whitney at home, and she is waiting for the notary to come over so that she can officially sign her resignation letter from the Mormon church. So Whitney jokes about how hard it is to leave the church because they still want those tithes and offering, which is your 10% of your income. So the notary arrives, and when she was like, do you have a pen because I forgot one? And I'm thinking, how are you a notary and you don't have a pen on you? That should be standard. I said, not you coming to somebody's home to notarize a letter unprepared. So before Whitney signs off on her resignation letter, she is talking about how this is her third attempt to leave the Mormon church. The first time was when she was divorcing her ex-husband, and we all know the story of why Whitney got divorced from her first husband, because she was cheating on him with Justin, and Justin was cheating on his then wife with Whitney. So Whitney says that when the affair came to light and she was divorcing her first husband, the church denied her, and they told her that she would have to sit in front of the council and they would decide if she could leave the church. So they made her go through some repentance process, and then they started questioning her about the affair. They were asking her all these crazy questions like, where did the affair happen? How did it start? Like, where were you guys? I guess like having sex at, all this stuff that's just completely inappropriate. Now I said, I wish somebody would. I would have said right there, shout out to everybody, I have fun. Oh!
Shout out to everybody. I had fun.
I gotta be good.
So Whitney continues on by saying that the council brought her ex in, and then they all told her that her sins would be forgiven if she came back to the Mormon temple tomorrow. So right then and there, she knew that something was off, because based on the Mormon doctrine, they should be excommunicating her from the church immediately for what she did. So Whitney goes further to say that once the divorce from her ex-husband was finalized, she tried to leave the church a second time, but they denied her because they said that she was still sealed to her ex-husband. And because she's technically sealed to her ex-husband, then that means that it's not in favor to him, and he gets to decide if she could be excommunicated. So she was really angry because you see the double standards between men and women in the Mormon church, because Justin was excommunicated immediately after he confessed about the affair. I don't know how that works, where the women are still sealed, I guess, their ex-husband, but for some reason the men aren't if they want to get divorced. Like, I'm just confused on how that works. Why is the man able to be freed from the church and not worried about who he's sealed to? If she's still sealed to the ex-husband, then wouldn't the ex-husband still be sealed to the ex-wife? So Whitney says that she finally woke up and saw the abuse of the church, and today is the day that she takes her power back. So she signs her name and she is officially freed from the Mormon church. Now, as much as Whitney gets on my nerves with her antics, I was happy to see her free herself. You can tell that a burden was lifted from her. We have seen her grapple and struggle with making the move to free herself finally, but now it's done and she can just live her life now with hopefully a step in the right direction. But it was very fascinating to learn that she had to go through all these hoops to free herself from the church, but yet her husband was able to be excommunicated immediately. So now we get to the day of Heather's fun ski day, and all the ladies are arriving, and we see Heather's cousins there. She's happy to see them. And so we have Whitney and Lisa on their way because they're going together. Because, of course, they're now best friends. So Lisa's in the car joking about she's going to be on the bunny hill because she's not a good skier at all. And then Whitney's like, oh my gosh, really? Like, I want you to ski with me. And Lisa's like, girl, I don't know how to ski like that. And then Whitney says, well, that leaves me with me, Meredith, and Heather then. So of course Lisa wants to know where Whitney and Heather stand. And Whitney says that she and Heather haven't spoken since Arizona. And I said, girl, you have misdirected anger because I don't know why you're mad at Heather. You need to be mad at yourself. You started all the mess for no reason. Did anybody else feel like screaming when Whitney went on to say that she's been open and vulnerable with Heather and Heather has used it as a weapon against her? I said, what is going on? Whitney is a dangerous person to be around because she really believes what she's saying. I don't know how on God's green earth Whitney thinks that she's in the right. So anyhow, we flip back to everybody else arriving. Jen Shah arrives, Angie K arrives. We all remember Angie K. She was the one who hosted Coach Shah's birthday party at her home in episode 1. So we have Angie Harrington arrive. Lisa and Whitney show up and Lisa is pissed. She's like, Angie Harrington is here? I mean, really, Heather? What is going through Heather's head that she would invite Angie Harrington? The same woman who tried to destroy my family? Really, Heather? We're going to talk more about this in episode 6, but I will just say that Heather is one of those people who wants to be friends with everybody. And I'm going to leave it at that, but we're going to talk about that again when we touch on episode 6. So now they all start skiing. You have Heather, Meredith, Whitney, everybody else on the expert slopes, and then you have Jen, Lisa, and a few of the other ladies on the bunny slope. So we see Jen Shah and Lisa Barlow finish skiing on the Bunny Hill, and they're talking about how Angie Harrington is there. So Jen wants to know how Lisa feels about that, and Lisa says, I mean, honestly, we were friends for 20 years and then she lied on me, so I am uninterested in whatever she's doing. Right now, she is Whitney and Heather's friend, but I will say that I am questioning Heather's loyalty, because why would you invite somebody who is just talking shit about me? And like I said before, Heather is somebody who wants to be friends with everybody. And people like that, you always have to have a side eye for, because they will switch up like the wind. It doesn't make sense to me either how you would invite somebody's sworn enemy to an event. It's weird. But again, more on that later, because I think that Heather is also making very questionable moves, and I'm like, girl, you can't be trusted either. So they're all finished skiing, and now they go over to grab some food. And I love this part of the episode because they had the charcuterie trays, the champagne was flowing, and I said, yes. I said, now that is how you end a perfect ski day. So they're all talking amongst each other. We see Lisa, Whitney, and Jen talking. They're asking Jen about her trial, and she says that it's been moved to July 11th. So Lisa makes a joke about how they should all make a trip of it and go and see her, and she'll rent a house in the Hamptons for the weekend. So Whitney's like, I mean, I don't understand why they're all joking about this. This is a very serious matter. And Jen needs to be worried since they've moved it out 6 or 7 months. I said, Whitney, please believe that everybody understands the severity of the situation, but they're doing their best to lift her spirits. Lisa feels like, hey girl, let's try and squeeze a Hamptons trip in before you go to jail. So now we see Angie and Whitney talking at one of the tables, and Angie says, I hung out with Heather the other day, and she told me that you and her had a falling out, and I'm surprised. So Whitney says that her and Heather got tripped up on the details while they were in Phoenix, and Whitney is making no sense. I said, girl, just own up to the part that you played. You were out of line on that trip. You made it about yourself. There was no reason for you to bring any of that up while you guys were on that trip, and you know it. You wanted a moment, you wanted some camera time, and you're trying to secure the bag for season 4. Now Angie says, I mean, Whitney, I heard about that rumor that I allegedly told you, but I would own it if I actually said it, and you know that I didn't say that. So Whitney says that this is typical Angie behavior, where she's trying to cover her own ass and how Angie is a liar. Then Whitney goes on to say that she doesn't really care about Angie like that because Heather means more to her than Angie does. And I said, oh really? Because why does it seem like you're always in Angie's face? All last season you were saying how much you loved Angie, but now all of a sudden I don't really care about her. You were saying how you and Angie were cousins, right? It's so infuriating to watch Whitney switch up on people. Like I said, something was said at that basketball game, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. And Whitney, you calling anybody a liar is extremely comical. So now we have Jen Shah walking over to Heather, and she's like, Heather, why would you invite Angie Harrington knowing the drama between her and Lisa? So Heather says that it slipped her mind and it wasn't meant to be a jab. She was trying to bring everybody together. Now, I think that that's a very weak excuse on Heather's end. I think that Heather did it on purpose because she wanted to see some sparks fly. Heather loves playing into that, I'm just this sweet, innocent Mormon girl. You know, I don't know about all this. I just don't know anything. But she's really the complete opposite. She did that to bring some drama for the show, and she was trying to be messy. So now Heather walks over to Lisa, and she's like, hey, Lisa, I know that you were talking about this with the ladies, and I want to apologize to you. It was an oversight. I wasn't even thinking about the guest list, but please know that me inviting Angie Harrington was not meant to be a jab or a slight to you. So Lisa's not really buying this whole apology. She's like, I guess, girl. And then she says, you know, the fact that Heather didn't even take my feelings into consideration, I think that's actually worse than the guest list itself, because I would never do that to her. So, child, we now see Angie Harrington walk over to Lisa, and she's like, Lisa, can we talk? Lisa says that she's not interested. She's like, girl, leave me alone. There is nothing for us to discuss. Now, Lisa, I understand how you feel, but I would be lying if I said that I would not be curious to hear what she had to say for herself. I would have talked to Angie for a few minutes just to hear her out, to see if I could piece a story together and see if there are any holes in Whitney's story. I think that you were a bit too hasty turning Angie down. Again, I get it, but just to see that Whitney's telling the truth, I would have heard Angie out. And I probably would have called Whitney over and said, okay, girl, let's compare stories, because she's telling me this and you told me that. So Lisa walks away and she says, again, she's not interested. The damage is done and she is over it, despite them having 20 years of friendship. And, you know, I get it, because I'm somebody, if you wrong me, I don't care how long we've known each other. I'm out. I believe in protecting my peace at all costs, okay? And there are billions of people in this world, so if I have to cut you off, trust and believe I can find another friend. But we end the episode with Whitney and Heather going off to the side, and they're trying to get past their issues. So Whitney starts off the conversation by saying that their argument was over details, and how she specifically remembers telling Heather what Angie Harrington told her. So Heather says, look, Whitney, yes, we have talked about Lisa like a dog for many years, but I'm telling you this right now that I don't remember ever hearing those specific details about BJs for jazz tickets. And I feel like you were angry at me because you wanted me to say that I heard those rumors when I didn't. So now Whitney says, I would never ask you to corroborate a story that you don't remember. And I said, let's play the tapes back, please, because you were getting in her face, calling her a liar. You obviously are angry that Heather didn't have your back and did not go along with what she was saying. You're salty about it. You wanted Heather to lie and say, yeah, girl, I heard that too. You're mad because your stupid plan backfired. Just admit it, Whitney. You feel a type of way that Heather doesn't remember being told this. So Whitney has the nerve to say that since she remembers, they're going to have to agree to disagree. So Heather's like, girl, what? Agree to disagree? Are you serious right now? Like, that makes no sense. And I said, Heather, if I were you, I would have walked away from this conversation like, girl, I'm done. I'm not going to sit here and even entertain this. And Whitney, this is not an agree to disagree situation. Agreeing to disagree is like you're debating about food or music opinions, not about whether somebody remembers something or not. You sound crazy. So now Whitney really starts going off and she's like, you took my pain and turned around and weaponized it against me. And I was looking at the TV like, is she serious right now? Is she serious? You're the only one weaponizing your trauma against everybody else, and it's not right. And you continue to conflate two issues that have nothing to do with each other. Your childhood trauma doesn't fit anywhere in what you're talking about right now. You are grasping at straws because you can't admit to yourself that you're wrong. That's all this is, Whitney. And the way I hit the floor when Whitney said, and when you told me that I made the whole trip about me, and it's like, but that's what you were doing. It was all about Whitney and her issues and her healing and how she's sad about what happened to her in childhood and how she's going to see her brother and sister, Curtis and Kelly. You made it all about yourself. And Heather was right about that. Whether you want to accept it or not, Heather was right. So Heather just wants to move on, and she says, look, Whitney, how can we weather this storm? I'm not trying to fight with you. I love you. You're my cousin. And then Whitney has the nerve to say that she doesn't believe that Heather's being sincere. And then she adds that she's still angry that Heather has not apologized for not having her back. Y'all, the way I was so over Whitney, especially at the end of this episode, when she closed out the episode saying that all this shows is that Heather doesn't care about her, I was like, you're delusional. Whitney is very immature and she needs to grow up. It's very aggravating to watch. I'm like, she really believes what she's telling herself. So now we get to episode 6, and child, this episode was something else. We open it up with a little black and white movie trying to figure out who is behind the Instagram account called Shah Exposed. And when I tell you that production has been A1 for all the franchises, because the edits have me screaming. That black and white movie had me on the floor. So anyhow, we start off the episode with Heather at a community theater, and we learn that she wants to form her own choir. Since she's no longer part of the Mormon church, she still wants to have a choir and sing because she feels overwhelmed and she wants an outlet to just let that stress out. Now, was anybody surprised to find out that Heather could sing and was in a choir? I was like, oh, I was not expecting to hear that. And we see Corey, who's a choir director, show up, and I think she said that he was raised Southern Baptist and he used to be a choir director for over 20 years. So they'd be forming this choir together. And then we learned from Heather that the idea came about because one day her and Corey were at her piano and they were singing and she realized how much she missed it. So we see Heather telling Corey that she wants to form a choir with like-minded individuals, people who might not be religious but are very spiritual. And then she adds that her spiritual side is lacking. So she goes on to say that they're going to be holding auditions very soon since Easter is around the corner. Now, I'm not going to lie, this scene gave me, I need another storyline. I know I wasn't the only one who thought that, but I was like, girl, we haven't heard you mention singing and choirs until now, but I digress. So now we move on to the next scene with Coach Shah and Jen having a date night, and they're at a trampoline park. Those always look like so much fun. So they're having a great time, and now they just talk about what's going on with the both of them. Jen thanks Coach Shah for staying by her side while this is all happening, and how, you know, she couldn't get through this without him. So now Jen changes gears in the conversation, and she says, babe, I didn't want to bring this up, but I have to. There's this Instagram account called Shah Exposed where all they do is talk badly about me and Lisa. So Jen goes on to say that Lisa sent her screenshots of this account talking poorly about the both of them and how it's been really weighing on her because this is happening right before her trial and she just wants to bury this. So then she reveals that Lisa told her that Chris Harrington, Angie Harrington's husband, is the one behind this account. So Coach Shah is so confused and he's like, Chris Harrington is behind this account? Why would he do that? We've never gone after him or his wife. So Jen says, yeah, I know, and I didn't even want to address this, but now I have to handle this personally because he's disrespecting my entire family. That will always be the sign of a true coward to me. Somebody who doesn't have the balls to say how they feel about somebody or something without hiding behind a fake profile. That's just so lame and so pathetic. But we're going to talk more about that later on because I have so much more to say. But very pathetic and very sad. And even though Jen's own actions have put her in this boat where she's facing prison time, She does not deserve to have fake accounts harassing her and her family. This next scene with Lisa and John discussing college with their son Jack. I mean, we didn't really need this scene. It felt a bit like a filler. And honestly, I would not be having this conversation with Jack. It would be like, I'm gonna need you to go fill out some applications and let me know where you want to go. Period, point blank. His argument was not strong enough for why he doesn't want to go. When he said, well, I saw on YouTube some really rich entrepreneur said that you shouldn't go to college, I was like, really? No, that's not a strong enough case whatsoever. I'm not a parent as of yet, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I'd be saying, Jack, you need to go to college. I thought that Lisa made some very valid points when she said he needs to understand that life doesn't just work out that way where, you just start a business and it's just massively successful. Like, he needs to know that there are steps in place. You don't just say, I want to do something and then, 1, 2, 3, it's done. He needs to understand that you get things through hard work. And yes, we're in a position to help him out financially, which is great, but he also needs to learn the skills on his own. And I agree with that. And like Lisa said, the whole college experience isn't all about academics. It's about learning to live on your own, dealing with other people. How do you deal with conflict? You don't have mommy and daddy right there to just help you out. You have to really stand on your own 2 feet. It's the socializing, going out, going to parties, having a good time, mixing and mingling. Like, that's fun. I don't really know why he doesn't want to experience that. And I understand that college isn't for everybody, but I just think that his case is not strong enough as to why he doesn't want to go. It just seems like he's being lazy, and it's like, well, some guys on the internet told me that college is a waste of time, so now I just don't want to go. So we move on over to this next scene with Whitney, and it seems like Whitney and Justin always have so much drama going on. So they sit down to talk, and you already know that something bad has happened. So Whitney says in her confessional that earlier in the morning, she dropped the kids off at school, and before she took off to go back home, she just sat for a minute because she was having a tough day and she just felt overwhelmed. So she says the next thing that she knows, Justin pulls up right next to her and he gets out the car and she's telling him about how she feels sad and overwhelmed. He just interrupts her and says, well, I just got fired. So they're going over what Justin should post on his social media. And as he's reading the statement, we see Whitney just looking on. She looks concerned. So Whitney says in her confessional that she's been freaking out since hearing this news because Justin makes a lot more than her. And on top of that, they barely broke even from her beauty line, Wild Rose Beauty. So their lifestyle is definitely affected now. So she's like, I mean, what's going to happen to the house and our cars and our kids' activities? Like, how are we going to survive? But I said, yeah, since he's out of a job, just know that Whitney's going to be showing her ass for the next few seasons. So Justin finishes reading his statement and now he starts crying. So we learned that Justin was the chief sales officer of a publicly traded company that sold personal care products. So we find out that Justin was hearing some rumblings about him being fired, but when they sat him down to have a conversation and told him, it was still a shock. I think that we can all agree, I don't care how much you hate a job or love a job, being fired is low-key traumatic and it's embarrassing. Like, you feel humiliated. Like, you've been stripped of all your dignity. Like, how dare you fire me? So I know that he felt terrible because you're super high up in the company and they're sitting you down telling you that you're fired. Like, are you serious? And if he was the chief sales officer, then I'm sure he was bringing in at least $750,000 or $1 million. he was seeing some good money. So Justin says that they told him that while they appreciate all the hard work that he's done, with Whitney being a public figure and being famous, it's just not conducive to their brand. So Whitney's pissed and she's like, so the fact that your wife is successful and famous, that's why they fire you? They're punishing you for the woman that I am, and that's BS. And then Whitney brings up that little intimate moment they had last season. I can bet money that Justin's company, they feel like he needs to maintain a professional appearance at all times. And that scene wasn't it, so they were like, he has to go. I was Googling if Justin has found another job since, and it looks like he hasn't. So I know things must be tight if they're sitting around solely depending on Whitney and her checks. I guess Justin's gonna have to do some walkthroughs and appearances with Whitney too to get a check. I don't know. Being Whitney's husband might have to be his new job now. Just a hot mess, but it goes to show you that if you get on these shows and your spouse is working a corporate job, they have to always maintain that corporate professional image. It just is what it is. Oh, did anybody notice that when Whitney brought up how it triggered her and it brought back feelings of when she was 18, being shamed for who she was? I was thinking, Whitney, your husband has just been fired from his job. It is not about you and your childhood and teenage trauma right now. I need Whitney to tone it down and stop being so self-absorbed 100% of the time. It seems like it doesn't matter what the conversation is about, Whitney will always find a way to bring it back to what she went through. You know who Whitney reminds me of? Noella from OC. If you watched last season of Orange County, you remember that Noella was insufferable. She made the conversation about her all the time. They could be talking about the weather and she would turn it right back to herself. Self-centered people, I just always want to ask, how do you get that way? It's annoying. How do you have the uncanny ability to make every conversation about yourself? So now we move on to the next scene and we see Heather at Beauty Lab and her staff has grown. She says to us that business has never been better. They have so many customers and the money is rolling in.
Bling, bling, bling. Bitches is mad.
So she's telling her staff that they are waiting for the second location to be open, but in the meantime, between time, they're gonna have to work extended hours. They were not too happy hearing that. They were pissed. They were looking at her like, girl, we all have lives. We're not trying to be here like all day and all night. So the team meeting is over and now we see Heather sitting down to talk to her business partner / friend. So she says that while she's happy about business, just doing really well, she also feels overwhelmed and she's afraid that she's going to lose it all. So she brings up her book called Bad Mormon and she says that her book agent was getting on her the other day about how she's missed every deadline. I said, Heather, you better stop playing around before they snatch that advance back. So pretty much Heather feels scared about what to share and what not to share because she wants to be authentic, but she also does not want to sound fake. And she says that she worries about, will her mom be upset at what's being put in the book? And will her friends be upset? Will the church be upset? And I said, Heather, you've been talking about the Mormon church for 3 years now. It's been your storyline since season 1, episode 1. It's too late for you to be scared and want to backtrack now. Just put it all in the book. I mean, you already have people mad at you, not wanting to talk to you, so it is what it is. You're either going to reveal it and talk about it all, or just you might as well shelve the book and give the advance back. I'm tired of hearing about, I'm just so afraid, and I don't want my friends to know this, that, and the third, and what will my cousins think about me? What will my mom think about me? They already know that you've been denouncing the church for 3 years now. So it is what it is at this point. So now Heather brings up the latest drama between her and Lisa. She's really pissed because a few days ago, Lisa tweeted her dad's obituary to prove that she wasn't lying when she said that she texted Heather a few days before Heather's dad passed away. So Heather says, I get that she wanted to be vindicated because yes, she was right, but at the same token, that's going way too far. So she says that Lisa doing that pretty much killed any hope of them having a friendship. Now listen, I lost my father last year, and I can assure you that if somebody, especially a friend, decided to ever try to put my dad's obituary on blast like that on social media, we would have a serious issue. So I definitely understand why Heather was so pissed. Because how dare you? And Lisa, I understand that you wanted to vindicate yourself, but you went about it the wrong way. So Heather goes on to say that she received a text from one of her cousins telling her that she's not trying to be a part of any of this weird ugliness that Heather has going on. So Heather says that she feels like Lisa killed any chance of her family supporting her book publicly. So now Heather goes on to add that Lisa only cares about herself, and she's pretty much over Lisa. And she's also upset that she actually invited Lisa to audition for her choir, and now the fact that Lisa is probably going to show up to auditions, she's dreading it. I don't know how anybody could say that SLC is boring because once again, the ladies are bringing it. I mean, this is some grade A drama. So we flip to the next scene and we see Whitney and Lisa doing yoga together because we know that Whitney's very active. She loves that sort of stuff. Whereas Lisa is the complete opposite. She's like, my idea of a fun time is going shopping. Now I said, Lisa, Whitney's husband just lost his job, so she can't shop anymore unless you want to buy some stuff for her. But anyhow, they finish up with yoga and now they start talking. And Lisa's asking Whitney how she's doing since the news of Justin's termination has made the rounds all over social media. So Whitney says that it's been a very hard week for her family and really bad for Justin because he's had a corporate job all of his life. And now Whitney adds that she can't say too much about what happened, but she's gonna try and stay positive. Now, I thought that that was so funny. I said the biggest gossip of them all wants to keep quiet about her own situation. So now Lisa brings up her own drama and she says that it's been a hard week for her as well because she's been getting harassed on social media all week long. Now, we already know what happened. Lisa posted Heather's dad's obituary on Twitter to prove a point that she wasn't lying about when she texted Heather. So Lisa says, look, I just had to clear this up because Heather lied on me in LA and I just could not let this go. So Whitney's confused. She's like, can you walk me through your thought process? Why would you think that that was a good idea to post an obituary on Twitter? Like, that was out of line. And I said, you know it's bad when Whitney, of all people, is trying to check somebody else about their behavior because Whitney oversteps all the time. So Lisa says, look, I am not trying to go backwards with Heather. I just have to defend myself, but the intention was not to hurt Heather. It was to clear my name. You have every right to clear your name and defend yourself, but tweeting out Heather's dad's obituary was out of line and you know it. And I don't care how you try to spin it, you had no business doing that. You could have easily picked up that phone and said, Heather, I have the proof right here that I messaged you before your dad passed away. So now we get to the next scene with Meredith, Seth, Angie Harrington, and Chris Harrington having a double date. So Angie says that she never said anything about Lisa giving BJs for jazz tickets. And then she says, I mean, maybe I did say something about Vita Tequila, but I never said that. Now, like I said in the episode 5 recap, I believe that Angie said something. And I'm not saying that she said anything super crazy, but maybe she joked around like, what if Lisa's doing XYZ to get Vita on the shelves? And then Whitney ran with it, added some extra sauce to the story, and that's how we come to BJ's for courtside tickets. Like I said, I don't believe that Angie is 100% innocent. I do believe that she said something. So now Chris interjects and he says that he recently saw John at a jazz game, and when he went over to John told him to get the F away from him, and Chris couldn't believe it. So baby, we find out that Chris was tired of his wife being harassed on social media, so he took matters into his own hands, and he says, I'm embarrassed to admit it, that as a 52-year-old man, I created a fake Instagram account called Shah Exposed. When I tell you that I hit the floor, I was not expecting that at all. Did you guys see Meredith and Seth's face when he said that? Meredith was looking at him like, I don't want any parts of this. And Chris, you do know that there are consequences for cyberbullying or trying to dox people. Like, you could face jail time. You can be fined for that. Like, are you serious right now? You are a grown-ass man. And also, your wife is a grown-ass woman who decided to be on this show. I am so tired of folks joining reality TV and then they want to get so sensitive when people say things that they resort to low-down measures like this. That is pathetic. I'm all for defending your wife and you don't want to see her being attacked, but again, there's a way to do everything, and this ain't it. And this crossed several lines because now you make yourself look crazy. And I saw on Instagram, Lisa Barlow was blasting you. She was adding your job, telling them that you deserve to be fired. Do you know how embarrassing that will be if you lose your job because of this? And you make great money. You guys are loaded. And to have all that gone because you are so upset and so sensitive that you make some troll account harassing other women on this show, that is big loser energy. And that's why I keep saying that Angie and Chris Harrington have a very desperate energy about them. They want to be famous so bad. The fact that you will resort to this kind of stuff, it shows me that you guys will do anything, and that's very scary. So Meredith says, look, it's not great that you did that, but I was sent some things that Lisa has been doing the same thing, so I guess you guys are even. If you want to be a public figure in any shape, way, or form, you need to build a thick skin and not read the comments. It's as simple as that. Or just block people. It's not that hard. You know how I stay stress-free? Block. It's simple. Somebody gets crazy, block. Like, there are so many ways to deal with that. But you want to sit up here and make troll accounts like a weirdo. So now we jump to the next scene. We see Jen at home and Heather comes over. It was so funny because Jen's home was decorated with all these alien decorations. She had a 5-year-old's birthday party. So she's like, yeah, excuse the mess. But anyhow, her and Heather sit down to talk, and Jen reveals that Chris Harrington called her and he apologized and admit that he's the one behind the Shah Exposed Instagram account. So Heather's like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Like, I'm in shock right now. So Jen says, I asked him, why would he use the name Shah Exposed? Like, why couldn't he use another name? And he said to her that it was the only name available. So Jen says that it's not that she accepted Chris's apology. She was just in shock that he called up to admit this. So she's like, I just can't believe this because this affected my whole entire family, and you just don't do that. Especially, this is somebody that I know. I think that Chris and Angie should be ashamed. They were smiling in Jen's face the whole time it's them. You know how sick you have to be? So Jen says that I think that when it comes to you going forward with Angie, you need to assess your relationship. So Heather says, oh, absolutely. So now Heather says, so Jen, what are you gonna do about it? And Jen's like, girl, what are you gonna do about it? Because you're so close to them. Like, I hope that means that you're gonna assess how you feel about them. Like, they can't do this. So Heather says that although what Chris did was indefensible, she's not trying to be in the middle of this mess, and how she's still really close to Chris and Angie, so this whole thing is devastating for her. And I have to say, Heather really pissed me off in this scene, because one thing about it, I cannot stand people who play neutral. There are times when you need to do the right thing and pick a side. All that I want to stay neutral, I don't want to be in the middle, that's some real cowardly BS. How can you sit there and allow this to go on? Your good friend is being harassed, and you find out that somebody else in your friend group is the one behind this troll account, and all you have to say is, well, I don't want to be in the middle of it, and I'm still good friends with all of them. That's unacceptable. I would cut Angie and Chris off so fast, because if you can do this to Lisa and Jen, you can do this to me and anybody else in this group. Heather is very desperate to be everybody's best friend, and it's annoying. I don't know, Heather. You really dropped the ball. I was not feeling your response, and I was really irritated. Because how can you sit there and be so cavalier about this? What Chris did is wrong. So now we get to the final scene of this episode, and it's the day of Heather's choir auditions. Now, when they showed that short scene of Lisa singing, I was like, oh my gosh. Lisa actually can sing. She gave us a few good vocals. I said, come through. Now, I was surprised to see Angie and Whitney dancing together. They were prepping for the auditions as well. I was like, now, didn't you guys each call each other liars? So you guys are cool again? How does that work? They're both very strange, but they're dressed up in these showgirl costumes, and they're gonna dance as their audition. But child, I had secondhand embarrassment with this small turnout of people. There were about 6 people on that line. I was like, Heather, did you not put out an Instagram post? Did you not put up flyers around town? Like, why are only 6 folks here for these auditions? This is a Real Housewives production. That line should have been 2 miles long. So we see Heather inside of the theater. She's setting up for the auditions. It's gonna be her along with, I think she said there was some famous songwriter. I forgot his name, but she said that he's a very famous Mormon songwriter. He's gonna be one of the judges. And then a woman named, what was her name? Paisley. She's also one of the judges, and she was a contestant on American Idol. And Meredith is gonna be the host, like she's Ryan Seacrest. So then we see Shah arrive to the auditions, and Heather tells her that she's going to be in charge of quality control. So Jen and Meredith go outside to scope out the crowd, and Jen is already pissed because Angie Harrington is there, and she's like, are you serious? You're here after your husband called me up to admit that he did what he did? Are you serious? And then Jen says that somebody missed the memo, because why on earth would Heather invite Angie knowing what they've done to her? And that's where the episode ends. And I am very excited to see what goes down in this next episode, because it looks like Heather is about to back Angie. It seems like with Heather, there's no loyalty with her either. She just blows with the wind. But guys, I hope you all enjoyed my recap. Thank you all for watching, and you guys already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.